Now, running a small business or professional services is not an easy task, and you are the whole and soul person doing everything that's required to keep the business going. Now, for such people, presumptive taxation can be called as a shot in the arm and in your tight schedule, especially. Therefore, to understand the right nitty-gritties of the presumptive taxation on today's episode of Tax Guide, we will have Preeti Khurana, Chief Editor of ClearTax, joining us now. Good evening, Preeti, and welcome to the ET Money Show. First question, definitely to you, is what exactly is presumptive taxation? What a kind of a relief, if I can call it that, would it be?
Thanks, Kavita, for having me on the show. And this is actually a pretty interesting scheme. So, presumptive taxation, as the name suggests, presumptive taxation means that the government is allowing you to assume your income in a certain way. Now, I'll go into the depths of that, but let's understand that firstly, this is an optional scheme. So, you can choose to go for presumptive taxation. What it essentially does is that it lowers your compliance cost. So those who opt for presumptive taxation, they may not be required to maintain books of accounts. They don't have to get their accounts audited. So in that sense, it lowers the compliance cost for taxpayers. And if you look at the tax machinery, then it reduces the burden on the tax machinery. So it's actually a win-win for both taxpayers and the government. And therefore, this scheme was actually introduced long back, giving an option to taxpayers who were either doing a profession or running a business. Now, those who are running a business, they are treated separately, and those who are running, pursuing a profession, those are treated separately. So, if you look at the scheme as such, you're eligible to file a different, simpler income tax return form, and it essentially will lower your compliance burden.
Let's just break this down and understand it better. So, if we claim for a presumptive taxation scheme, can we claim our expenses and deductions in revenue? How does it work?
Right. I think that's the most common question. So, what presumptive taxation does is that it says if you're running a business, and therefore, what you have to do is you have to aggregate the total receipts of your business or whatever is your gross turnover. Now, from this gross turnover, you have to report 8% of the total turnover as your profits, right? But if you have digital receipts, those are taken at 6%. So I'll go over that again. If you're running a business, then whatever is your gross turnover, 8% of that or 6% in case of digital receipts shall be considered as your profits. Now, when you do that calculation, when you calculate your profits through the presumptive method, you are not allowed to deduct any expenses any further, anything else. So, because your income has been assumed to be either 8% or 6%, whatever the case may be, no expenses can be deducted. Also, depreciation, which is actually a pretty common expense that businesses claim, depreciation of assets, is also assumed to have been allowed. So, no deductions whatsoever can be claimed when you're reporting income on a presumptive basis.
So, Preeti, the rules of presumptive taxation differ for different tax paying entities. The two major classifications that so far I've gathered from this conversation is businesses and individual professionals. So, how does it work for each one of them? Please explain.
Right. So, as you very rightly said, there are two categories. One is businesses, which is under Section 44 AD, and professions can also claim a presumptive basis of taxation, which is under 44 ADA. So, these are the two separate sections. Now, coming to 44 AD, all businesses are eligible to claim, but certain exceptions have been provided. For example, those who are into agency business or somebody who's earning income by way of commission or brokerage, these two types are not allowed to claim on a presumptive basis. There's also another condition, which is that the threshold has been defined. So, not all businesses will be able to claim. Only those businesses where the total turnover does not exceed rupees 2 crores in a particular financial year shall be allowed to claim. So, you have to be mindful your total turnover should not exceed rupees 2 crores. Now, coming to professions. because there is a separate section, there is a different turnover or receipts that have been defined for professions. As such, what are the types of professionals that can claim? So these professions have been defined. So lawyers, doctors, interior decorators, architects, engineers, if they are all pursuing a profession, which means they are not in a job but they're running their own profession, then they will be able to opt for the scheme. Now, under the scheme for professionals, the threshold is rupees 50 lakhs for a financial year. For a business, it was 2 crores. For professional, it is rupees 50 lakhs. And like we spoke about, 8% and 6% as percentage of gross turnover to be reported as profits. In case of professionals, 50% of your total receipts have to be reported as profits. And similar to businesses, you shall not be allowed to claim any expenses from this income. So that all of those are assumed to have been allowed. Again, no need to maintain books of accounts or get your accounts audited. Also, this is only available for resident taxpayers, and you should be either an individual or you should be a partnership firm, not an LLP, but a partnership firm or an individual. And businesses which are being run as HUF can also claim this scheme.
Mention threshold limit in terms of turnovers. Could you mind repeating it again?
Sure. In case of a business, so those who are claiming under Section 44AD, for them, the total turnover should not exceed rupees 2 crores in the financial year. And for professionals, it should not exceed rupees 50 lakhs in the financial year.
Profession you're talking about? I mean, the type of profession here doesn't matter.
Well, the professions have been specified by the Income Tax Department and
Mention
they've
that.
actually been listed down in the Act. Right now, whatever is specified is, that legal profession, engineering, accountancy, architecture, you have interior decorator, and, these other various professions. For example, if you're doing any kind of technical consultancy, even that is covered. And if, CBDT wants, they can notify any other profession as well. So not all professionals, say for example, if you are a tutor, so you're running a tutoring business, in that sense you will not be considered a professional. Perhaps you can go for business presumptive taxation under 44AD, but only the specified professionals shall be eligible to claim under 44ADA.
What are the rates for presumptive tax?
Right. So for presumptive taxation for businesses, it is 8%.
Okay.
But say if a business has receipts which are in digital format, so, not cash, but digital, either you've received, bank transfers or electronic payment. In that case, 6% of that receipt shall be considered as your profit. And for a professional, there is no concept of digital or cash, because as you may assume, doctors may have cash receipts. So therefore, the total percentage that they need to apply is 50%. So I'll give you an example. If total receipts of a professional who is covered under this scheme, who is eligible under the scheme, is rupees 30 lakhs, then his or her profits shall be taken as 15 lakhs, and that person has to pay tax on this 15 lakhs. And from this 15 lakhs, no expenses can be deducted, but they will be allowed to claim deductions like ATC, ATD, and all of the other deductions that any other individual can claim.
So, Preeti, now once you opt for this particular tax scheme, can you opt out and opt in again, or is it a choice that you've made once and you've got to continue with it now?
That's a very valid question, because what happens is that sometimes taxpayer keep getting in or out of the total threshold, or they see a benefit in opting for the regular scheme, reporting expenses, claiming depreciation. But one has to be mindful that when you are opting for presumptive taxation, let's say for this year you have opted, but in the next year you opt out and you file your return as any other business and you claim expenses, then the following year you will not be able to opt for presumptive tax. You will have to continue whatever you have opted for a continuous period of 5 years. So once you do a switch, then you have to stick with it for the coming 5 years.
All right, so this really sounds like a very simpler version, Preeti, but then who, according to you, should be going for it? Who, according to you, can actually benefit from this presumptive tax scheme?
I think this is an excellent tax scheme because you are supposed to file ITR 4, and if you look at recently the government has announced a common ITR form. Yet they have said that those who file ITR 1 or ITR 4, ITR 4 is for presumptive taxation, they will continue to have access to ITR 1 or ITR 4, or they can choose to do the common ITR. So essentially, it's a very simple form. You don't need to report several things. In fact, if you're running a small business and if you're meeting the threshold, then it makes a lot of sense to opt for presumptive taxation. You may not have to maintain detailed books of accounts. Audit is not required. So therefore, you may have the same date as individuals to file your tax return, but essentially it will be a much simpler form. You can self e-file, and you can uh, and it's supremely beneficial for businesses as well as professionals. And a large number of ITR 4 are filed. If you look at government statistics, this is a form that finds favor with those who are either doing a profession or running a business. It's actually quite favorable because a lot of these people may not have resources, may not have money to spare to hire an accountant, or look at a person full time to do their accounting and get the audit done and do rest of the reporting. So it's a pretty beneficial scheme, and I would recommend it to anyone who's running a business, provided you are meeting all the requirements, and you are within the specified threshold. And if you're a professional, you should also be specified by CBDT.
Right. Thank you so much, Preeti, for such an elaborate and in-depth explanation on this particular topic. Thank you so much.